All right, guys. So today we are going to talk about planning your trip. And I know it's a little bit different than what I usually do on this channel because we've really been focusing on luggage and packing here for a little while. But honestly, planning a trip is probably one of my biggest strengths. I think I might be just as good at planning a trip as I am with packing in a carry-on. So I have a lot to teach. I have a lot to say. I've been to 92 countries and all 7 continents, and I'd say maybe 95% of the trips I've planned myself. I have asked all over the place recently what your guys' biggest questions are about planning a trip, and I am here today to answer all of your questions. So whether I'm traveling solo, traveling with friends, traveling with family, or just traveling with Brian, I plan all of the trips. In fact, I don't really like doing planned group trips, where it's like a big tour, because I really like to make my own itinerary and plan as much as I can myself with my own preferences. I'm going to give you guys all the basics of planning, answer all of your questions, and then you plan your own trip with my insights however you want to enjoy your next vacation. So today we're going to talk about the following things: choosing where to go, choosing what to do when you get there, how I make my itineraries and how you can make one too, how I pick my hotels, how I find my way around a new city or country, how to pick and stay within your budget, and a lot more, including safety and how to use your cell phone and things of that nature. Now, before we start, I do have a ton of travel help videos because that's what I was doing a lot when I started my channel before we started really focusing on luggage and packing. So I do have a travel help playlist, and it takes everything I'm talking about today and really goes in depth. So even though it's older videos, it's the same information. It talks about flights, hotels, travel apps, safety, money, everything. So I did link the playlist down below. Now this video could get a little bit long because I am giving you every single detail that I possibly can. So I am going to put chapters in the description. You can go ahead and skip to all the different chapters. Okay, let's get started because I have a ton to talk about. Also, be sure you're subscribed to the channel, especially if you want to travel often and pack well, like I do. Also follow us on Instagram because there's a lot more tips and tricks on there that we can't necessarily fit here on YouTube. Okay, so first let's talk about choosing where to go. Where do you want to go? I mean, honestly, what is your dream trip? You're going to need to do a little bit of research. For example, if you want to go see the Northern Lights in Norway, you're not just going to go ahead and get a flight from your hometown to their capital of Oslo. In fact, you are going to probably fly to Oslo and then go up to Tromsø. Okay, that means 2 different flights. So before you just kind of assume that you can just go from here to here, you might need to jump around a little bit. And that's kind of the first research that you're going to want to do. In addition to figuring out cities and airports, you're going to want to know what the visa process is, especially for the country that you are a citizen of. It's really a very simple Google search, US citizen wanting to go to Egypt, visa process. And then it just will take you to an official government website, tell you everything that you need to do, and just prepare you. There are a lot of countries that are just very easy to get into. You just wait in line, get a passport stamp, and go. But there are some countries that you may need to do an e-visa before you go, a visa upon arrival where you have to pay, or there's even some countries where you will have to send your passport out in the mail, have it be gone for a certain number of weeks, and come back with your visa sticker already in it so you're ready to go. Now you're going to want to think about the season, and this is something that I messed up a lot on when I was a little bit younger planning my trip. We have 4 seasons here in Michigan, but some seasons just have dry and rainy. I have definitely shown up to a country or two in the middle of rainy season, not realizing and having pretty horrible weather. Also, is it busy season or is it slow season? I personally don't want to go when there's a ton of crowds. However, I just got back from Dubrovnik, Croatia, where it was the first week of their off season and about 80% of the city was closed. Let's talk about choosing what to do when you get there. So I personally like to research on TripAdvisor, on different blogs that I find via Pinterest, or even on Viator or Get Your Guide. Now, I'm not going to necessarily book tours, but I like to do that to see what the city or country really has to offer and what's easily accessible from that city. Are there day trips to a certain city? Are there special monuments that are must-sees? Is there a very special museum? That's where you will get your information. This is what you're going to do. I want you to figure out what the must-sees are that you want to do on your trip. And then I want you to go to Google Maps. It's an app on your phone that you can download. And I want you to type in that attraction. Once you get to that attraction, I want you to hit save, and then I want you to hit add to favorites, and it's going to put a little heart on the map of that attraction that you want to see. Now, when you do this for everywhere in that city that you want to go to, you're going to have this beautiful little map with a whole bunch of hearts. So you're really going to see what parts of the city or country that you will be wanting to visit, and that's going to come in handy a little bit later. So now is the time that I make a bit of a rough itinerary. I know where I want to go. I know what I want to do when I get there, and I'm going to make a spreadsheet. Now, a spreadsheet isn't for everyone. Some people want to use some sort of travel planning app. Some people want to do it on paper. Some people don't want an itinerary at all. But for me personally, I need to be able to really visualize everything, especially when it comes to the dates and what's being done on those dates, as well as hotels and transportation and everything like that. In fact, if you go down to the description box, I have a link so that you can download a free itinerary that I have made. Not only have I given you a mock one to kind of copy and recreate on your own, but I've also provided you with a blank one, and I have provided you with my personal itinerary from my latest trip. That way you have a little bit of an example of what I personally like to do, and then you can create it yourself. So again, go to the link in the description and download your 3 copies of my travel itineraries. Of course, if you do have a travel planning app that you like to use, please let us know down in the comments. I personally am not going to use it, but there are some other people in the audience that might want to know. So I like to start with a blank sheet. Just like this. I'm going to have the number of days that I plan on being gone. And then down in this column, I have a blank space for the place that I am in. And then I have a spot for the morning, for the afternoon, and for the evening. Underneath, I have my hotel spot for the night. And then I have a large column of notes. This is really going to help you figure out the amount of time that you want to spend in each place. And then you can really start filling everything out as you research it, such as your big flights to and from, how long your layovers are, your arrival times. Things like that are pretty important. And then you can even start filling out your smaller flights, trains or buses or day trips. These are really important things to note as you are starting to plan. You know, if there is one flight that arrives at 8 a.m. and one flight that arrives at 11 p.m., that is something that you need to decide. And looking at how your whole trip is laid out for that week or two might really help you decide. For example, if you're flying to Costa Rica and you arrive at 11 p.m., but then you want to go stay at the volcano at La Fortuna, that is a 4-hour drive. So if your flight arrives at 11 p.m., I'm sure you're not going to start your 4-hour drive once you get through customs and immigration. You are probably going to want to stay in San Jose for the night and then start your 4-hour journey the next day. That is something you will need to note on your itinerary. Then once you have booked your big flights and your transportation in between, that's when you can start to really fine tune your itinerary. Once I have a flight or train or bus booked, I put it in the dedicated time slot, and honestly, I color code it, and it's going to be yellow. And once it's booked, I put it in bold so that I know I booked this, the transportation, the confirmation number, this is the start time, this is the arrival time, done. And then this is when you can start thinking about hotels. You know the exact dates and you know the number of nights. As you can see here at the bottom is where I have my hotel. So let's go ahead and talk about how I pick my hotels, because honestly, that's the biggest question that you guys had. So first, let's discuss, are you going to do an Airbnb or are you going to do a hotel? We could debate this all day. And really, it's your personal preference. I know my answer, but it really varies from place to place. I've done both, but I know what I prefer. Here's the thing. If you are traveling with more than 2 people or you have a family, an Airbnb could be great. I know when Brian and I travel with my son, we love Airbnbs because then we usually have 2 separate bedrooms, maybe even 2 bathrooms, a kitchen. We just have more space. However, in my personal opinion, there are some cons to booking an Airbnb. First of all, they can not always be reliable and they can definitely cancel on you last minute. And there's often extra fees involved. You're going to have the Airbnb service fee, you're likely going to have a cleaning fee, and then honestly too, you have to kind of clean up a lot when you're there. I've been in Airbnbs where I've had to strip the beds and throw towels in the laundry and take out the trash and unload a dishwasher, and that was on top of a $135 cleaning fee, which I think is ridiculous. However, my biggest reason why I do not usually choose Airbnbs is because that check-in time usually doesn't have a lot of leeway. If you can check in at 3 p.m. and only 3 p.m., but your flight arrives at 8 a.m., your host doesn't always let you drop off your luggage. And then what are you going to do with your carry-on between 8 and 3 p.m.? That's where a hotel comes in handy because you can drop that off and the concierge will hold on to it for you. Or there's plenty of different rooms and maybe it'll be available early. Likely your Airbnb will not, but it is worth it to ask your host just in case. Now that we have that established, let's talk about finding the location. Remember when I told you to favorite all of those places on Google Maps? Go ahead and open up that map. I want you to look at all the little hearts that you have set aside for that particular city. And then I want you to find a hotel within that area. When you're on Google Maps, you can literally type in the word hotel and all of the hotels around the area that you are searching will come up. And then you can type in your dates and then you can get prices for a ton of different websites. I have my website that I personally like to book everything on, or I like to book directly through the hotel. I personally have exclusively used Expedia for about 10 years, and I have quite a lot of status and points on there, and it's worked out rather well for me. Some people might say not to do it, but I get a lot of upgrades and I get a lot of free stuff. I like to choose a hotel within walking distance to all of the things that I want to do. I like to choose one that is in a neighborhood that I want to explore. I want to have some local restaurants around me. Once you're on Google Maps, click on that picture and you can do a nice little street view to see what it looks like. Take a walk around. And then once you've booked your hotel, don't forget to add it to Google Maps and favorite it, because that's going to come in handy later. Now you can take a breather because you have your flights booked, your transportation, and your hotels. This is where the fun part comes in. You get to start booking all the fun stuff. For example, if you found a day tour that you absolutely love and they really only do it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you're going to want to grab one of those days. You don't want it to sell out. If there is a really hard reservation to get for a restaurant, book it as soon as you're allowed to. If there's a play that you want to see and it's only there on Friday night, book that play. Honestly, I book everything way in advance as I possibly can. This is also when I like to see different attractions hours, because there may be some days that certain museums are closed. This is what you want to make note of. If you only have a little bit of time there and you go to that attraction and it's unavailable, what a bummer that's going to be. I'm not saying to fill in every single one of those boxes with stuff to do. You don't have to plan your trip hour by hour, But if there's something special that you want to do, book it and then live the rest spontaneously if you want to. That's what I personally like to do with my trips. The last few things that I research a week or two before my trip is local food to try, key phrases in the language that is spoken in that particular country, the weather forecast so I can figure out exactly what to pack and what's needed, my transportation from the airport to the hotel, and then public transportation, taxis, and Ubers. Now let's touch a little bit more on those last two, because a lot of you guys have questions about that as well. Let's talk about how to get around in a brand new city that you've never been to before. Remember your hotel and how we saved it on Google Maps? I want you to click on it, and then I want you to press directions. At the top here, directions from, I want you to put the name of the airport that you're flying into. You can see here that there are car directions, public transport directions, walking directions, biking directions. You guys, it really is very simple. Let's go ahead and do transit directions, because this is what I use the most if you are looking for directions upon arrival at the airport. Go ahead and put the appropriate time in there. So let's just say we're going to be available to take that public transportation at 10. So let's use Paris as an example. We are going to go from Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport, and then we are going to type in Hotel Crayon Rouge, which is a hotel I stayed at most recently when I went to Paris. When I type this in, we can go ahead and see that I can get from the airport to my hotel via RERB at 10:02, ride it for 11 stops, and then walk 9 minutes, and I'm there. Voila. You now know how to get from the airport to your hotel. Now, could you take a taxi? Of course you could, but public transportation is a little bit more affordable, and when you get it right, you really feel accomplished. I personally have been to Paris 6 different times, and I've always done public transportation. Now, this can be done in real time too. Let's go ahead and go from my hotel to Musée d'Orsay. I can see here in the directions that if I leave my hotel at noon, I can take the metro line number 1, ride it for 1 stop, and get off at the Jardin des Tuileries, and then I'm going to walk across the bridge, and I will be right there at Musée d'Orsay. However, when I look at this transit map, I see, do I really want to go on the metro for just 1 stop? Maybe it's a really beautiful walk, and really it only takes an additional 5 or 6 minutes. And then you can really see that if I do this walk, I get to pass by the Louvre and see the beautiful building and the triangle, and go through the gardens and go along the Seine and get to the destination that I want to without being underground. Google Maps will literally give you step-by-step walking directions. You guys, I seriously use Google Maps all the time. I've been to Paris so many times. Look at my map. Look at it. It's insane. That's so many hearts because that's all the stuff that I've done in Paris. It's crazy. On another note, there are always taxis, of course. I don't always personally like to use them. Like I said, it's a little bit more of an expense, and I usually like to stay within a budget. And do keep in mind that there's not always Ubers in every country either. And sure, you could rent a car. I've done it before, but sometimes it doesn't make sense. Really think about where you're going and see if it would be a hassle. Think about parking overnight. Think about how much it costs to park overnight. Think about if there's public transportation and it's much easier to do it that way than to actually drive. And if there's trains and buses, do you really need that car? I've rented a car in Costa Rica, Dubai, South Africa, Mexico, Tahiti, but it really just needs to be appropriate for my needs. If you do want to rent a car, research everything. How much is it going to cost you? What are all the different laws? What is the insurance like? And do you need an international driver's license? I've never needed an international driver's license, but I know it depends on the country. Now, I've talked a lot about Google Maps, which means your phone's going to need service. I use T-Mobile for my phone, and here in the US, that means that I have an international phone plan. It's just kind of automatic. Most people that travel a lot that live in the US have T-Mobile. It works in just about every country And I don't even have to do anything. I just land, turn my phone off of airplane mode, and it says, welcome to blah, blah, blah country. And then it works. Now, if you're in the US and you have a different cell phone provider, they usually have a daily rate where you can purchase service. I think sometimes $5 to $10 a day, and then you have it for 24 hours. But there are also physical SIM cards you can get or electronic SIM cards. If you have an iPhone 14 or 15, you no longer have a physical SIM card slot. It's electronic now. And there's tons of eSIMs out there that you can use. I personally have never had to do it, but I know friends that have, and they love them. So look into that a little bit and see if it's smarter to turn on access through your cell phone provider, or if it's a little bit cheaper to get an eSIM. Now we are going to talk about budget. Money, money, money. Now, this is not a video for me to tell you how to get the best deal. Now, there's tons of different ways to get good deals. I have gone over that in my blog. I have gone over that in other videos. I have gone over that on Instagram. I'm not talking about it anymore. There's ways to figure it out. Usually when I book far in advance, I do get the best rates. For example, on my last trip, Christina and I took a couple of trains around Italy, and we booked it far enough in advance that I think we paid maybe $25 each way per person. But then when we were in Switzerland, we decided one day that we wanted to take a super spontaneous trip to Liechtenstein. So we got right on that train and booked that tickets. And to our surprise, for the two of us to get there round trip was $250. Because we were last minute. The early bird gets the worm, folks. So here's how I like to figure out my budget. Personally, for big international flights, I would never pay over $1,000. Now, I am not some bougie person that needs to fly first class or business class. I have never done a lie down seat. I just like to get from point A to point B as cheaply as possible within reason. Travel often and pack well, right? That's my motto. How am I going to travel often if I'm paying $3,000 to go on all of these flights? I'm probably not paying more than $500, to be honest. And if I can't find a fare for under $1,000, I'm either going to try to really hack it, doing like one-way flights or flying out of a different airport, or it's just not meant to be. I also will never pay more than $200 a night for a hotel. I'm sorry, but with how busy my vacations are, a hotel is a place to shower and sleep and get ready. I don't really care that much. I don't want to completely slum it with cockroaches either, but I'm not going to be in my hotel for that long at all. So as long as it's clean and in a good location, that's it. Especially if I'm traveling solo where I don't split the bill with somebody else. So right there, that's my budget. I will pay max $1,000 for a flight and max $200 a night for a hotel. And that is your budget. If you can find something even cheaper, great. In fact, maybe you're going to a city where hotel prices are average $70, but then the next city that you go to, prices are average $230. That still averages out to $200 a night. You see what I mean? Now, the subject of girl math is really trendy right now. And when it comes to budgeting, I have a little bit of a girl math brain. My flight is paid for in advance. My hotels are paid for in advance. Even my tours are paid for in advance. So once the days of my vacation are finally here, I kind of have a whole new budget because the flight and the hotels, that budget was like Lauren 10 months ago's budget issue, not Lauren right now. At this point, if I'm traveling this week or next, I just need to budget for food, activities, and souvenirs. I always love to Google what things cost in other countries. For example, you can get a meal in Indonesia for $2 or $3, but then you want to have a meal in Switzerland, it's probably going to cost you way closer to $50. So again, do your research and make a budget. Now, back before I was a travel credit card kind of girl, I had what I liked to call my envelope system. At that time, I was a single mom, and I really needed to make sure not to spend all of my money. I didn't even have a credit card back then. I was either a debit card or cash kind of girl. So I couldn't just like spend all my money and then worry about it when the bill comes. It was literally the money that I had. So what I would do is go get my local currency in advance for the country that I was going to. And then I would take that amount of money and split it between the number of days that I'm there. So if I was there for 5 days, I would have 5 envelopes and split that cash into each envelope, and that was my allowance for the day. The cool thing was, if I didn't spend all of my money on Monday, then that would go into Tuesday's envelope. And then my Tuesday budget would be a little bit bigger. I would also have a little bit of emergency cash on me as well, and I had my debit card if I really needed to. Don't always assume that you can use a card in every country. I was very, very shocked last week when we were traveling, and there were a lot of places that did not take a card. And that was a really big 180 from the year prior when nobody accepted cash. Lastly, let's go ahead and touch on safety. Now, that's not really anything that has to do with trip planning, but a lot of you guys always ask. And guess what? If you're scared about something, Google it, research it. Google's not going to laugh at you if you type in, "Can a woman go to this country alone?" Guess what? I see that all day, every day. Everything on all of my social media is all travel related, and that's all people ask. Seriously, Google pickpockets and the city that you're going to. Google scams and the city that you're going to. All of it will come up. It's very rare that I feel unsafe, and I travel solo more often than not. Things can honestly happen everywhere. Don't let any nervousness or insecurities stop you from seeing the world. Talk to people that have been there. Research blogs and not news articles. Most importantly, if you read a news article, please realize this. For every article that says that something bad happened to somebody in a certain country, just imagine if there was one article for every time that somebody had an amazing experience in that certain country. So for every one bad experience you read about, there's probably thousands and thousands of good experiences that you're not reading about. And that's the way that I personally look at travel. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go into some big crazy danger zone or anything like that. I'm going to be realistic. It is important to be aware, of course, and be prepared, but don't be scared. Live the excitement of a new culture. Meet new people, try new foods, fall in love with the country. Over 50% of Americans don't have passports and will probably never leave the country. A lot of Americans haven't even been on a plane. Give the people at home the knowledge of the beautiful parts of the world that you're seeing and inspire them to do it too. There is a whole beautiful world out there, and I really encourage you guys to see it. My life has completely changed since I started traveling, and it really is a true passion of mine. All right, guys, I hope that that was helpful. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. I really did look at every single one of your questions and really tried to answer it. If you guys still have questions, please let me know down below, and please download that free itinerary. Like I said, you're going to get a blank one to fill out yourself. You're going to get a generic example from me, and you are going to get an example of my latest trip so that you can see exactly how I plan my trips. Happy planning. Let me know what trips you're planning in the comments down below. I have all of my trips for 2024 roughly planned already, but I definitely need to fine-tune some details as well. And that's the exciting part. I love it. I'll see you guys next time. Happy travels. Bye.